Sure. And we'll manage, I think we'll figure it out from here. Um, what we're going to be talking about today, let me remember how to share. Yes. Um, okay, there we go. So what we're going to be talking about today um, is what just came up, is the sort of nuts and bolts of Amazon advertising. Last week, we talked about what different kinds of ads there were. And then I also sort of showed you, I walked you through the process of actually creating an ad. This week, what we're going to focus on more is the money end. And I think, Bob, you're actually uh, more knowledgeable even than I on that subject, but
Even.
I'm hoping you guys are going to hear less of my voice this time. Um, so this is what you should be seeing up on your screen right now is the dashboard, the Amazon advertising dashboard, and that you can look at it and it'll give you all kinds of nice graphs. You can actually change what displays, which is very nice. And down below, you'll have all of your campaigns. Right now, I'm just running 12 of them. And the only ones that are showing, it says active status enabled. So these are just the ones that are actually delivering right now. And it gives you some basic, the chart gives you some basic information on that. Again, I can, customize to my heart's content. More to the point, I can also play around with bidding. And bidding obviously is very important to every campaign because oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Because here we go. Because you want to make sure that you are spending money wisely, that you're spending the right amount of money. Now, in this particular case, this particular book hasn't done very well. Last month, I spent a lot of money that I shouldn't have, and I'll show you how I know that. I had $66.12 worth of sales against $59.47 worth of ads, and every one of those ads, that I paid for was based on a click. Somebody saw one of the ads and clicked on it, and that tells me that my advertising cost of sale. Right? So the cost of each sale was 89.94%. For those of you who know KDP well, you'll know that if you are, with an ebook at least, if you're spending more than 70% ACOS, you're actually losing money on every one. So I have lost money on this one. However, it is also the first book in a series. So I don't feel terrible that I've been operating with this book in the red, because for every one of these that sells, I happen to know that 50% of the people who buy the first book buy the second book, and 90% of the people who buy the second book buy the third book. So
David,
it works out. So that's...
Just to clarify, could you clarify, are the sales showing the author's royalty or what the
They are showing the gross sales. So this is including, and this is why I know this is not good, my paperback sales. This book, and it's only showing the sales that came directly from an ad. Okay, so that sales total that you see right here, and the spend total, and the ACOS and all of that are based on clicks that led to sales, okay? You get charged for clicks that don't lead to sales. And if you add those up, then, you hopefully will have a advertising cost of sale here, right? That is less than the net cost of actually creating the book. So you're actually making money. Does that make sense? I don't think I said that very well.
Well,
Bob?
yeah, the 6612 that it's showing is the total sale retail, or the total price of the book, of the sales of the total price.
Right.
So on the royalty structure you chose when you set up your KDP on the book, you're either making 35% or you're making 70% of that number.
Right. And or if it's the print, you're making 60% minus the printing cost.
Correct.
So it gets a little complicated. But in this particular case, if you took all of the ebooks and print books that I sold due to the ads, this is how much total I brought in. Okay? And this total amount, again, doesn't look like a lot, but remember that it's only part. There are also sales that happened not through ads. And because of the way that Amazon works, the more sales that I've got, the more my books show up, the more sales I have. So there are heuristic effects beyond just the individual sale. But you want to try to make sure that this number and this number are in a relationship where you are actually in the green instead of in the red. And generally that number with KDP for ebooks is 70% minus 15 cents per megabyte. If you've got a lot of pictures in your book, it can swell the size of your ebook quite considerably. And so that can cost you a few cents. But in any case, if this number, if you're just doing ebooks, say, and this number over here, ACOS, is below 70%, then you're making money. And you basically, have sold books you wouldn't have sold otherwise, and made money you wouldn't have made otherwise.
Okay, we have a couple of questions in here that I think are most appropriate here. Are you going to get to how much you're spending per click? Are you going to?
Yeah. That's the bidding strategy is sort of the next thing. I just wanted to show everybody what this looks like.
And if you could just reiterate again the ACOS.
Yep.
What that stands for.
Advertising cost of sale. So for every sale, okay, how much of each sale is offset by an ad. Now, all that is this number here, sales, divided by this number here, spend. It's nothing complicated, okay? But where you need to be smart is to know that this is the gross number. This is not your earnings. This is the gross sales. So Amazon's percentage comes out of this. The printing cost, if it's a print book, comes out of this. So you need to be paying attention to not just making sure this is lower than that, although if it's higher than that, you definitely want to change something, but making sure that the percentage that you've got actually reflects a balance that you're happy with. And again, if the book is the first in a 20-part series and you're in the red for this particular book, that may be okay because in fact you're selling the other 19 books. Okay,
and just to clarify, so you said generally as a rough rule of thumb, below 70% on your ACOS for an ebook.
Yep.
The question Marla's asking, what about a paperback? How would they calculate that?
Okay, the paperback, remembering that the sales are gross, so they don't care. Paperback, they don't show, by the way, two things here. And if you are exclusive with Amazon and are using KDP Select, they don't show what are called KENP, which are the pages, the borrows. Those don't show up here. And the other thing that doesn't show up is audiobooks, Becky. So if I, for instance, have somebody who clicks on one of my ads and they don't buy the ebook or the print book, but they buy my nice pricey audiobook, and I get a percentage of that, I'm happy. I'm still happy, but it isn't reflected here. So you need to sort of look at your actual results over time and see what this reflects. What percentage of your total actual sales, including the borrows if you're using KDP Select, including the audiobooks if you've got an audiobook, how much of that is reflected by the sales. So you can then adjust what you think is an acceptable ACOS. Does that make sense? Bob, am I missing anything?
No, you're good. Can I just talk a little bit about the impressions column?
Oh, thank you. Because it actually does affect this.
Impressions, you're not being charged for the impressions. You're being charged really for the click.
Which is this over here.
But impressions, there's at least a school of thought that impressions matter. What an impression means is how many people had an opportunity. They didn't necessarily see your ad, but they had the opportunity to see your ad because they went to the page your ad is on. They didn't necessarily scroll down and see your ad, but they could have. In the old advertising world, when you weren't really buying by the click, like magazine ads, all people were paying for was an impression. And there was a theory that people have to see your product 6 or 7 times before it registers and they buy. That's been kind of turned on its head in this pay-per-click world we're in. But there are some people in the ad business who still think impressions are a good thing, and the more the better.
And I will point out that they do affect your cost per click, because the lower your what's called click-through rate, which means the number of clicks per impression, right? And what percentage of impressions lead to a click? And if it's very low, then like below 0.1% or something, then you end up having to pay more. Amazon tends to feel like you don't have a very high performing ad. And so they are not going to, even though you have a set bid, they're less likely to want to run your ad at a bid of 14 cents or whatever it is than somebody else's, because yours isn't going to
make as much money as the other.
And then are you gonna show us how you look at your results overall over time? Is that a reports issue?
Well, this is, in fact, that's exactly the report we're looking at for this ad. Okay. This is over the year. I started it in February, and you'll see. Excuse me, I need to close the door because I have a dog barking outside. Pardon me.
Paul is asking, so are you paying 34 cents per click?
At that, I believe David had
Thank you for
answered this, but you just basically adjust your bids, but at one point you probably were paying 34 cents per click.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, here, let me get it a little more specific here. This is the targeting screen, which is where you set the keywords. And if we go down here, you can see that for each keyword, I've set a bid. Now you can see too that Amazon, in their wisdom, shows a range. So for this one, alternate history fiction, which I happen to know, usually, it's a keyword that happens to be a good fit for this particular book. It's an alternate history book, and so I'm willing to spend a fairly high amount for that. Now, they recommend between 78% and $1.92, 78 cents and $1.92. I came up with $1.01. I never do round numbers because most people are going to bid 50, 75, $1. And I figure if I bid 1 cent more than that, then I'm more likely to get the bid. Okay. Am I being silly, Bob? Is that just me being?
No. That's like an Amazon. That's like an eBay strategy. It's how options work. These are all options.
exactly. Yeah, if you're bidding on eBay, you bid $1, not a dollar even. So you'll see they recommend $4. I've got $1. I've spent a grand total of 53 cents on this. You'll notice that the 53 cents is less than the dollar. The bid is not what you're going to spend, okay? The bid is just the most that you're willing to spend.
Think of it as your high bid. If you go into an auction house, an art auction house, you could bid something, but if nobody else has bid anywhere near close to you, you'll buy it for less than your high bid.
Now, in a live bid, they will be perfectly happy to let you be the first person in at $25,000 or whatever, when only nobody else was going to bid more than 500. In a computer ad bid like this, and this is how bid ads on Google and BookBub and Facebook and a whole lot of other advertising systems work exactly the same way. You say, this is the most I'm going to spend. And then at any particular time where there's an ad slot, Amazon's algorithm looks through all of the ads that fit this particular search or this particular book or whatever, and they see who's got the high bid. And if you've got multiple people who have the same bid, they look at who's performing best. But if there's only one person who's got a bid over 53 cents, and that's me at $4, then I'm going to end up having to pay 53 cents instead of paying the $4. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We also have another question. Sorry. And I think I know the answer to this one, but Lynn is asking, how did you test your ad? I want to check and see, is it true that you just run it and then keep adjusting, or you really don't have a test mode, right?
Well, you can't test it without actually running the ad.
Right.
They won't let you test it. And wouldn't it be nice if they did? But they won't. They want your money. And so if you look at it, this is an example, okay? I happen to know, so here are these are the ads that have actually led to orders. So you see the number of orders. Time travel did fairly well, and that's under 70%, very nice. Gail Carriger, who's an author in the same category, led to one sale. Now it's a $14 sale, so that was a print book, but it says 5.3%. That's very nice. Now, here's Jodi Taylor. She's another author. In fact, the leading author in this particular category, which is, alternate history time travel. And if I look at this, I've spent $7.19 in ads. I've made $2.51 gross back. That's terrible. So, in fact, I've lost money on these ads. However, I happen to know if somebody is interested in Jodi Taylor, they're going to be interested in these books. So I've been willing to swallow that a little bit. This is very high, though. But I'm willing to spend a little bit of money because I know when they buy book 1, they are likely to buy books 2 and 3. So the way that you test it is you come up with all of your keywords, and Amazon will say suggested bids for all of them. And if you want, when you're first doing it, you can actually click on, put their suggested bid in all of them, okay? But you can also go through one by one. You can edit them up and down. And in fact, what you do is look and see which ones are costing you money, and you can adjust. You can look at the chart and say, okay, these are the ones that people have clicked on, and I've spent $2.84 on this, and I haven't had any orders. Well, that sucks. And on the other end, here is $1.82 I've spent, but I've made $14.95. Now, again, that's a print book.
Okay, just to clarify, you can run 2 ads with a different variable or different.
Oh, yeah, and in fact, don't run 2 ads that are using the same keywords. You can do it as a test, and I'll show you why you would do that. Okay. You can, if you want to test, where is it? Preview the ad. There we go. If I have two different creatives, so different language that I want to drop in here, I can try two ads that have the same keywords, okay? And see which one performs better. But I don't want to do that for very long because what I'm doing is bidding against myself. I've done that. I've made that mistake. And so what you end up doing is spending more money because for every keyword that you're bidding on, somebody else is bidding the same amount. Well, guess who that somebody else is? It's you.
Okay,
So
David,
you
let me
end up
ask you
spending more than you need to. But if you do it for a couple of days, you'll get a sense of which one of the ads actually is the most effective. And they do have, more detailed reports that you can download, and those are here.
So, David, let me ask you a question related to that.
Yeah, please.
At least what I've discovered is you can only have one book per campaign.
You can have multiple books per campaign. Oh, sorry. You can only have per campaign. If I go back here, let me go back onto the main thing. Each one of these campaigns, you really can only run one ad.
Right. So if I have a separate campaign for the paperback version and the ebook version of the same book.
If you would like, yes. Or, for instance, if you look for some of these books, I ended up deciding that the automatic placement was working better than my keyword placement.
Right.
Does that make sense? So, in fact, what I ended up doing was running the automatic placement. But I did that after I had been running both of them side by side for a couple of days to see which had a higher click-through rate and therefore which was going to sell more.
Okay, but if you use the same keywords for the ebook version and the print version, you're bidding against yourself, you think?
I think so, but if I may, there's different searches. If I search, oh gosh, kunoichi, because that's what my book is about. Okay, here I'm number 2, but this is the Kindle store. Okay, if I do the same search in books, it'll be a different result, although I bet you it's the same titles. No, what do you know? Mostly the same titles. There's another one. This isn't an ebook. So, in fact, it's not entirely the same. I wonder if there are any ads in here. Oh, look, another one of my books. Oh, gosh, sorry. And we talked last week about negative keywords, which can be used to make sure that you don't, there is a book in there that doesn't really fit any of the rest of these.
You covered that really nicely last time. So
I won't go into that any further. But in other words, you probably could get away, if you have different formats, paperback and ebook, you probably could get away with running multiple ads. I tend to run the ad for the paperback because, to be honest, I make more off of it.
Right.
But that's maybe me being lazy. I don't know.
I mean, at least as a strategy, I think David touched on, that you can have the automatic placement. In other words, Kindle is choosing the keywords or Amazon is choosing the keywords, as opposed to custom where you're choosing the keywords. I think it's a smart idea to set up a campaign in doing each one and seeing which works better.
This is called A/B testing, and with advertising, A/B testing is really important. Yeah. And that goes to things like that, deciding whether you're going to go with the automatic placement or with keywords. It is with what I showed you, which is testing where is it? There it is. Testing the ad language, yeah. Right, and finding out what's most effective. It's also for places with Amazon ads. Your art is always going to be the cover of the book. But on other advertisements, Facebook, Twitter, BookBub, Google, you can create your own image, and it can be just the cover of the book. It can be some of the art of the book and then an additional thing. And what you end up doing is doing testing of the different variations with as few variables changed between the two ads as possible. So two different pieces of art with the same keywords, see which one is better. That's called A/B testing. You run it a couple of days, you see, B is running better than A. I'm going to drop A and go with B. But you can then refine it even further. You've got nice art. Now let's try some different language. I can try it with a higher price or lower price. You can do all kinds of A/B testing that way. But it's very important to make sure that you're not just going in and saying, I'm going to do this one ad and it's going to be this much money and this is what I'm going to do. So in terms of, bidding strategy, starting with what they recommend, right, with these recommended ranges isn't bad. What the heck? Especially, if I go down here, these are keywords where I've never actually spent any of the money. And if you look at it, I might do better. Now, for instance, keeping time. There's an example. The series that this book is part of is Keeping Time. Well, that if somebody does a search on keeping time, the likelihood is higher that in fact they want this series of books. And this is the first in the series, so I want them to see this ad. So I'm bidding 26 cents. They're recommending 54 cents. And I think I'm going to apply that. Okay. And you see what I did there? And it just raised that bid to 54. But I can also say, I don't think I want to do 54. I want to do 51. Okay. And I'm going to go like that. And I hit save. Oop. Or I can just hit the down arrow and hit save. And it's now 51. Okay. And then I can test it for a week or a few days and see. Now, I've been letting this account go a little bit, this particular ad especially. But it's a good idea, especially when you're just starting out, to check it fairly regularly and see which bids are working, which keywords are working, which ads are working. If an ad is costing you a lot of money and not delivering actual sales, then you might consider pausing it. And see where this says active? There's a little button here. I can pause keywords that are costing me a lot of money, like this one. Except I don't want to pause this one because I know she happens to be an author that is effective.
David, Mike is asking how long you would typically allow a bid to keep going before you decide it's not worth keeping.
Well, what I generally do, and Bob, you tell me what you think of this. What I'll generally do, you'll notice that Steampunk is a lower bid than most of the rest of these because I already adjusted it down. So I'm going to adjust it down some more. Okay, 16 cents. And what I'll do is I'll keep doing that. And if I will probably get fewer and fewer impressions for that bid. But when I get impressions and they hit, if somebody clicks through, I'm going to make more money per click. Does that make sense? So what I generally will do is for a while, if it's actually producing at all, I will lower the bid until I feel like I'm getting a good return on my investment, ROI. If it's costing me a lot of money, let me find a good one here. Okay, if like this is 284, Blake Crouch. He's costing me money. They want me to raise the bid, but it's not doing well at all. At that point, this is a bid that's been running for 6 months. I'm just going to turn that off. Does that make sense?
How often would you recommend that people check initially, especially
initially,
once a week or every couple?
Well, I try to check at least once a week. Obviously, I didn't check very much last month, and that was not good. I was traveling a lot. But if you are checking too often, it's easy to sort of get caught up in the really small detail. But at first, maybe, I mean, when you're running your first ads, it's not a bad idea to check every couple of days just to see if you've missed something. If one of your bids, if one of your keywords, has relatively few impressions, but is selling getting a lot of orders, and therefore the ACOS is very, very low. I mean, 5%, 1%, 2%. You might want to raise that bid because, in fact, that's a very effective bid, and you want to make sure that it's being seen by more people. You can always add more keywords. I have 163 on here that you are able to add up to 999. And to be honest, more keywords is better. You can always lower the bid on ones that aren't being effective. And
particularly at the beginning of a campaign, I mean, what you're testing is not just the pricing of your bids, but whether the keywords that you've chosen work at all. So I would say, check every couple of times a week or at least once a week, but be open to the idea that you might have been wrong about your keyword selection and that you might want to be testing whole new batches of keywords every week.
Yep. Now I have a question for you, Bob.
But adding more.
I just added impressions as a column here because that's actually a helpful analytic. How do you judge effectiveness? I mean, what criteria do you use as you're looking at this, other than did it sell? Is it selling? Is the ACOS good? What other criteria do you have?
Well, I'm a big fan of ROI. So basically, for me, if it's not selling books, it's not a good keyword.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I'm hearing, just to reconfirm what I'm hearing from you guys, is that, especially as we're getting started, that we may want to be checking our stats every couple days, but not jump to any initial
absolutely
actions.
Agreed.
Wait at least a week before we, panic and decide to turn something off.
And I want you to notice that even the most expensive one of these, in 6 months, I spent $20. Okay, that's not a lot of money. We talked about this last week. It's very difficult to get Amazon to take your money on these things.
Yeah.
And the way that you get them to take more of your money, which is in fact what you want, believe it or not, is to get a wider and better collection of keywords. I added a column. It's not in the standard. You can see I customized the columns here. I added a column that says impressions. And Bob talked about impressions. That's literally how many people opened a page and saw a web page with my book on it because of an ad for my book. And that seems like a lot of people, but you'll notice no sales. There were clicks because they're the spend, but no sales. So, I feel very comfortable having paused this keyword. But again, I gave it 6 months before I did that.
It's very possible that in the first week or two, your problem is going to be that you haven't spent any money.
Yes. And in fact, we're talking about, okay, how many clicks, how many sales, you may find that there's almost nothing. And at that point, come up with some new keywords, add to the list, but also wait, be patient. Unless you suddenly find that you've spent $30 in a day on a keyword that didn't fit, which I've never had happen. In that case, well, then you lower the bid or something, or pause it. But in most cases, being patient and waiting is a good idea.
One thing you might test in that first week is if you see you're getting a lot, your ad is getting a lot of impressions, but no sales, then your ad copy might not be as good as it could be.
And then it might be a good idea to try an A/B test, right? And try with the same keywords, but which, by the way, you can download. See this button? It says export. You can download these keywords and the bids it's a CSV file, a spreadsheet file. You download it, you create a new ad for the same book. You upload the same keywords and the same bits, and then you try a different language. You try a different ad copy, and that can sometimes really be very effective, because you'll find out, well, here I thought, I did a lot of testing to find out, but what really happened at Waterloo is the tagline for this ad. Well, maybe if I tested it, it turns out that, that isn't the best tagline. I can, test other taglines, and if they're more effective, I can turn this ad off completely and run with that one.
Can you show where that export button was again?
I will show you again. If you look all the way at the top, this is let me look again. If you look, this is targeting. We also have negative targeting, which is, we talked about that last week, the negative ads that keep your ad from appearing in searches that are close but not really appropriate. Bob, you had a great example of that.
Yeah, that's in last week's.
Yep. So I won't repeat, but in the targeting, also in the negative targeting, there's an export button. I click on that, and it downloads. And
Okay, and are you able to dive down into any deeper into that sales information to get any data about who bought your book?
No. What you can see is where they bought it, and this is interesting. Placement. There are basically, we talked about this. There are 4 different places that your ads can show up, but one of them is mutually exclusive to these 3. You can show up on a lock screen of a Kindle, and that is a very different kind of ad. Alternately, you can show up in the top of search. So right now, Kunoichi doesn't have an ad that runs, but if I were to try, I don't know, Teen Assassin book. There we go. Okay. There's a sponsored ad at the very top of the searches. And that is a top of search first page ad. And you'll notice I added a 50% adjustment to my bid, because this is a very, very lucrative placement, right? They literally did a search on something that my book showed up for, and I'm showing up before any of the other books that are part of that category. Does that make sense? So in fact, I'm willing to pay a premium for that. And I can set the premium higher or lower, okay? Product pages, if I go to, here, I'll go to Rule of Many. This is a product page. And you'll notice that there's the series, there's the people who bought this also bought, but below that, what do we have? The sponsored products related to this item. These are ads that people bought, keywords that fit this book. Either the keywords that they entered, I'm going to guess the KDP keywords that they entered, or other metadata like their names or the title of their book, right? In fact, that's a product page. Now you'll see here, most of my impressions have been on product pages and most of my clicks. But my click-through rate is very low because I'm one of many books here. And in fact, I may not even be on the first page of books. There's 17 pages of books. And my book could be way back here. And as we said before, nobody ever clicks past the first page. So if I'm not showing up here, you'll notice that the book that shows up, oh, this is the Autobots, is the first book in the series. But if I'm not showing up in this list, it's because my bids are low or my click-through rate is low. If all bids are equal, they'll choose the one with the higher click-through rate. So if you look here, my click-through rate for top of search, which is this here, right, is 1.66%. That's pretty good, actually. And it's not surprising because it's the first thing that shows up in the search results. My results for the sponsored, on the product page is less than, just barely more than it's a tenth as effective as that top of search. Rest of search, which if you look at a search here, there are two top of search results, right? These two books are both sponsored, right? Now, if I go further down on the page, and I'm looking, yeah, there's another one, sponsored. Okay, these are also sponsored. These are at the bottom of the page. Those two are sponsored, and those are these. Now, they're twice as good as product, but they're nowhere nearly as good as top of search. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what I'm most, and if you look at the sales, I've, actually got many more sales. My, ACOS is much better for top of search pages than it is for product pages. And this is the kind of, analytic that you can look at and see which, is it worth it for me? Maybe I should lower my bids. I can't go below 0. I can't down bid. But it says that I can. No, it won't let me do that. Huh? Dynamic bids up and down. Okay. Oh, I see. It'll allow you 50% or more. I don't want to have them bid me up higher because this is already not effective, but having them bid me down would be okay too.
Touching on that, David, when under the campaign bidding strategies, I think there are 3 choices. When would you do different things?
Oh, if I'm feeling very conservative, there's 3 choices. There's dynamic bids up. There's dynamic bids up and down, which is what these are, which dynamic bids up and down means that if they know that I'm excited about this bid because I've put in a 50% premium here, they will bid up to 50% over my bid. It says here, the example is if I have a $1 bid, they will adjust that to $1.50 if I will get the top of search placement, but not for anything else. And for certain things, they will also bid it down. Bid up only will only go up, bid up and down, they will adjust it if they feel like you shouldn't spend. And then I can't remember what it's called, but basically the third kind is bidding only exactly what the bid is, what you put in, and not adjusting it dynamically. I don't think it's bad to have a dynamic bid, as we've seen, for these top of search bids, because they're worth more money. They just are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Bob?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Those are the 3 kinds. The other kind of ad allows for the same kind of thing, but it's a much less sophisticated. Lock screen ads only allow you to bid by category. They know what categories the person likes to read. So if they like romance or historical romance, well, I can say I'm willing to bid, so much money to be. In fact, I have a lock screen ad for this book. Now that I think of it, yes, go ahead.
On that previous screen, you were talking about top of page ads being so much better.
Right.
Looking at the sales column and seeing that the product pages one is higher. So can you?
Well, no. I haven't sold more through the product pages. I've had more sales. Well, look at that. I've only had one more sale. Tells me that I've had more paperback sales, which nets and grosses and nets me more.
Okay, so I just want to point out, because it depends on what numbers we're looking at, right? If we were
Yeah.
to only look at sales, we might go, oh, that's great. And then, but we look over at the spend column and I see that you spent a lot more to get that 34.
Yeah, the $34. I basically spent $32 to get 34.
34.
And that's
So
not great.
I had to point that out because
Thank you.
my eyes went to the sales column and went,
Oh yeah. No. I'm sorry. I was looking at the, I mean, to be honest, I was looking first at the click-through rate, which tells me, because, I mean, generally, the click-throughs on the same ad, you're going to get a fairly tight correspondence between click-throughs and sales. Whether that's 1% or 10% or 5% or what, you'll be able to figure that out.
mm-hmm.
Okay. But generally speaking, there's a pretty high correspondence between click-through rate and number of orders. In fact, in this case, even though I've got a quarter of the, okay, I've got 10 times as many clicks, right? No, 4 times as many clicks. Oh, I see. Many times more impressions. But only one more sale. So 4 times as many clicks, only one more sale. That is unusual.
Okay, and those product page ads are the ones that you showed where they were lower down on the page. Is that correct?
Those are the ones that are below the people who read this also, people who bought this also bought.
Oh, okay.
So here's the also bots. Oops, sorry. The also bots, and here are the ads. These are the product ads.
Those are product page.
Notice the difference between them is just that these don't have a blurb, and these have a blurb. There it is.
But when Amazon talks about impressions, it just means they've seen the page your ad is on. It doesn't mean they went down to the bottom and saw your ad.
No, and that they didn't go like this all the way to the end.
Right.
In fact, they are highly unlikely to have. But those are all counted as impressions.
David, let me talk, since we only have about 10 minutes left. One thing we said we were going to talk about was 2 tools. I think you guys have probably figured out that choosing keywords is important. And there are 2 tools that are at least worth knowing about that are outside of Amazon as tools that are useful in terms of researching what keywords might be relevant to your product or book. And one is called KD Spy. The other is called KDP Rocket, although I think they might have retitled it, but you'd still be able to find it under KDP Rocket. But both of those are tools. They cost something. They're not very expensive, but they're touted to be very good at figuring out what keywords might work best.
And this is KDP Rocket. I don't have KDP Spy anymore. I had it for a long time. But you'll notice that this is AMS, Amazon Marketing Services. If I type in Kunoichi and I say, go get 'em, Rocket, what it'll do is it'll do a couple of things. It will show me what shows up, right? Oh, that's a, yeah.
And is KDP Rocket the one? I remember you guys talking about one of them was a little better for genres, and another was little better for keywords. Which were those?
Yeah, KD Spy is supposed to be better for categories, and
Yeah.
KDP Rocket is better for keywords.
So here's, this is in the ideas searches. You'll notice that if and this is for the KDP search, it'll tell me how many different books have the word Kunoichi in their KDP keywords, the total number of Amazon searches estimated per month. And if I hit analyze, it'll tell me how much I'm likely to make if I use that keyword. And it tells me a competitive score, which is to say between 0 and 100, how hard is it for me to get my book seen using that keyword? So closer to 100 is bad, closer to 0 is good. On the other hand, if it's closer to 0, that means nobody else has the keyword, which might not be a good thing because it means that people might not be searching on it.
Okay, so we have a question about like time. You know, at this point, of course, in the learning process here, it looks like, oh my gosh, that would be so labor intensive to make, what, $60 or something. But
Yeah.
is it over time, or is it really just the setting up that takes some time and then you're letting it run and earning money?
Bob, do you want to answer that, or you
Yeah,
want
that's
to?
supposed to be the way it works. I mean, your time intensive period is the setting it up in the first few weeks when you figure out how to tweak it, tweak your bids, add keywords. It's not exactly set and forget because it's a dynamic marketplace, and somebody
Yep.
might be coming in and who wasn't bidding before on a key. Keywords might have been working for you, and somebody else might be coming in and bidding them up and costing you more money. Things change, but it should be more labor intensive at the beginning than ongoing.
And the time that you spend at the beginning will pay off in the long run. And I will say this again. My experience has been that for one book, if it's not a book that, for instance, some of these books that I'm running ads on are $9.99 ebooks. Okay, so those are high-priced ebooks. And for those, all I need is one sale every once in a while, and I make a good chunk of change. If it's a 99-cent short story, unless it's a lead-in, a loss leader leading into a long series of books, it may not make sense for me to spend my energy, money, and time.
Right. Almost all Amazon or book marketing strategies will tell you to have a series.
Yep.
Because the marketing, what you spend on one rubs off on the others.
Yeah, the best way to sell a book is another book, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And for those of us who have one book out, that's frustrating. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Because I do see we're up against it, aren't we?
I'm not seeing any more coming in through the chat. So if anyone else has another question, you can either chat it out. That would be great. Or at this point, if you want to unmute yourself, we could try that.
Question on where to go to get the download for the first recording.
Oh, I will send out, actually, as a member, you can go into the BAIPA website to the resources section, and it is there. If you have any trouble after you've tried logging in and going to the resources page, let me know. Just send an email to president@baipa.org, and I'll help you get that sorted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, David Cudler and Bob Heyman, for all your great information about this topic. This has really been wonderful, and just encourage everyone again to check out that first recording and probably watch this one again a few times so you can catch some of those notes that went by quickly. I know that's certainly going to be my plan. So thank you again, and
yeah, thank you too.
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, I can't.
We'll call that a wrap.
Thank you.
Okay.